powerful women. That women we from that church, that saint, they're imaging her power on that church. And the important thing about it being on the church, essentially, it's telling us that the sacred feminine had a really important place in the old Gaelic Celtic church. There's another thing, people sort of argue about this. Was it early Celtic church? Was it Gaelic church? So I call it the Gaelic Celtic church, which is the church that was there before the English took over. The British smashed that culture. There was the old Gaelic Celtic church, which was based on traditional lines, but there was also a hell of a lot of other stuff going on. So in the Middle Ages, when the Sheela-Na-Gigs were being put onto castles and churches and everything, there was actually there was a double system going. The Roman Church had come in, and the Roman Church had established itself classically in Armagh, and like it had its places all through the country. And then you had the English pale system, so like Dublin, Galway, Limerick, all these places were English pale systems running under Roman law. But outside here, sitting there at Drumcliff, you were probably in the Gaelic system, and you were under Brehon law, completely different law system. So there was this double world going on. Yeah, the other important thing about Sheela-Na-Gigs is that they're symbolic images. Although they're depicting like Illumbui and saints and powerful women, they're not trying to do a portrait, you know, it's a symbolic image. And that was the first thing that hit me when I'm just taking you now back to when it started with me, which is that I live near this one. And I bet none of you can see the Sheela-Na-Gig in that. Or maybe you can. It's not bad. Yeah, you can see it.
Oh yeah, it's also sure.
I showed that to a group recently and they couldn't see the bloody thing right. It was an even bigger screen. But see, she's classically up on the side of the castle there. There's nothing else. Now that I happen to live near that, and the reason I got it involved with researching the Sheela-Na-Gig was because of that. Because yeah, it's down in Cott, Sheela-Na-Gig Castle. The thing about this Sheela-Na-Gig is also there's another whole story behind it. See, every Sheela-Na-Gig that's in its original position, if you go and check out, you'll find something there that explains its existence to a certain extent. And the whole problem with the Sheela-Na-Gigs is so many have ended up in museums, completely divorced from their original surrounding. So this castle is known as Randolph Hurley's castle. Of course it is. But who owned the land? His wife, Catherine. She was Irish, he was a Norman. And the land, she's Catherine Collins, and the land in that area, Sheela-Na-Gig, near Dunmanway in Cork, the land was still being transferred through the female line into the 20th century, like they did on the island. So there's a big story with this one because she's in good nick, isn't she? Yeah, there's my drawing of it. See, so when I couldn't see her. When I saw that castle first, I didn't see her. I didn't pick her up because she's on the eastern wall. And in the eastern wall, you need to be there in the morning when there's light. If you're in there in the afternoon, the sun is around, it's just blinding your light, you don't see it. A friend of mine mentioned that he thought there was one on there, and then there's a German photographer friend of mine got me a close-up photo. And I went, wow, bang, you know, and then I did that drawing. And I realised that I completely missed out the symbolism. That's symbolism, you know. It's not an image of something. It's a symbolic image of, you know. So in many ways, the Sheela-Na-Gig is carrying a very ancient tradition in art. You know, the idea of representational imaging in Ireland is very, very late. In the early Christian period, you get faces, you know. But forget it, they're not portraits of monks like people say. They're just images, you know, and they're symbolic. Everything's symbolic, right from the Stone Age. In the Stone Age, it's all just symbolism, all the way up through the Celtic era. And then even when they start to work in like images of animals, and that's still kind of symbolic. They're not like, and yet they can do it when they really want to, you know. It's not that they can't make an image. They're not stupid, you know, they're actually good artists, you know. I mean, on these castles, they built wonderful money and windows that are mostly crumbled, you know. You saw in their original condition, they were great stone carvings. So that is what they meant to produce. And I just put that one in. You really couldn't make it up, could you? Yeah, I mean, what better image could you create to represent the power of women? You know, there is no better image. And I say, just make these statements because I was, you see, most books on Sheela-Na-Gigs are written by feminist women who are coming from the Maria Gimbutas sort of era of like looking at all the goddess images going back to the Stone Age, right? Now I've done a really, really big survey. I don't think there's many old goddess images that I haven't seen at this stage. If there are, chuck them at me because I love them, you know. But at the same time, there's nothing like a Sheela-Na-Gig. They're all mother goddesses, you know. They're not provocative, they're not like Sheela-Na-Gigs. There's only, well, I picked out a couple that get close to it, but they're still not close to it. They're still like chubby and nice and, you know, Sheela-Na-Gigs aren't nice. They're not meant to be. It's not what they're trying to do. Anyway, with me, when I moved to Sligo is when I really started looking at doing researching because I discovered that one down in Cork and then I moved up to Sligo with my partner at the time, who Bridget here knows, and she's Australian, fairly feminist, and she's kind of urged me to go for it, you know, and research it and get in there, and we started getting out and going to look at them and everything. So we produced this book. That's the one you've got.
Yeah. I had.
You had.
So somebody nicked it.
And the reason we did it is as soon as we started researching, we realised how wrong people were. You know, mostly it was male researchers, and they say insane things about Sheela-Na-Gigs. I mean, really, really horrible, insane things like, well, they look ugly because the artist is trying to depict women in the later stage of syphilis. You know, really. You know, that's an Irish academic review
how did he know how that looked?
From about 1920. You know. And also, it was really hard to find them. It was really hard to find images of them. It was really hard to find information. The National Museum had inadvertently unleashed the Sheela-Na-Gigs they have in the cellar. At that time, they were about 20, and they put them on in an exhibition in the Modern Art Museum in Dublin. Modern Art Museum, great, that's a great thought. They won't put them on display in the museum. They're one in a dark corner down there. You know, no light on it. There was just one.
That's where she should be.
And the rest are in the cellar, locked up. But just when we decided to go for it, when we moved to Sligo, they put on this exhibition, so we nipped down there and took pictures, and I've still got the old catalogue that they produced. And it's great, there's really good images of them. I actually refused to go down in the cellar and look at them down there. You know, I mean, I could, but I'm not going to go down there. For a start, they'll be like this, you know, and the whole thing like that. You know, that's the idea. And like I say, my views of that have all changed over the years. And what I'm promoting now is what I think now, after 20 odd years of research. These are just examples of different ways that people have looked at the name Sheela-Na-Gig. And the name is interesting because it's she, it's she, which is the spirit woman, the fairy, as you might say, but it's a spiritual word, banshee, or she's used in that way. So it's the other bit, Nagog, Nagig, Nagog, whatever. And of course we're not sure what they really said, because unfortunately, after the name came into use, then they were used everywhere, and even England started using them for their figures. Everybody's suddenly using it because it's gone into print, it's gone, So it sort of, people forgot that a lot of them had individual names, and that's actually one of the unfortunate things, really, is that a lot of the localised names for these images are lost. Anyway, the name derives from that one. And this is a curious bit of history, really, is that that is the figure that the name comes from. Now, academics will argue, because there's two figures at about the same time, where the name Sheela-Na-Gig was used in relation to it. So what happens is John O'Donovan, anybody heard of John O'Donovan, the great scholar of Ireland, trudging around on foot all across Ireland, writing about, going into towns and finding out everything he can about a town and trudging off to the next town and dying young, because probably Irish weather killed him, but he was a fantastic scholar. And he's at, this is near Fettered in Tipperary, on Kiltynan Church, a couple of miles south of Fettered, which is an old medieval walled town, the best preserved, they say. And Fettered's going to crop up again. So this is in Tipperary, and that's what was seen up until 1990. And when John O'Donovan saw that, he asked the local, "What's that?" He'd never seen one before. "What the hell is it?" "It's a Sheela-Na-Gig. What do you think it is?" And so he goes home that night, and I don't know if you know that these guys were actually writing letters every night. After they walked 50 miles all day and everything, they went home and wrote a letter to a mate. It's called the Ordnance Survey letters. So he wrote to his friend, John Coles, who's down in the south of Tipperary, and says, "God, I've seen this thing today." He described it to him, and John Coles says, "Oh yeah, I saw one of them on a church." And the next day he goes out and they ask, "What is it?" And that was over the doorway. Oh no, it's on a coin stone on Rochestown Church, about 25 kilometres south of the first one, right? Just on the Cork border. And the same thing, John Coles writes back and says, "There's this," and sent him this sketch, which is fortunate because that's the only image we got. In classic example of, like, there it was, 1844, and by 1880, but anyway, later on in the 1800s, somebody went to see it and the church had collapsed and nobody's found it since. So if it wasn't for John Coles doing that, we wouldn't know it was there. And they are the two that the name comes from. And in both instances, the antiquarians who wrote down what they were told they were called, Sheela-Na-Gig, they wrote them a bit different, So it's one of those weird names. Interesting. And it's sad, in a way. They didn't pursue it enough. A lot of people complain that they didn't pursue that, what's it for and what do you,
something like your drawings, that's very pretty, that one.
It is, isn't it? She looks very much Madonna-like, doesn't she?
Too
I
much,
rather like her.
Tells us about the main mind, not about the Sheela, but we get all that.
Anyway, we go back to this whole thing about how people get it wrong. You see, academics still is, they're up in the National Museum and stuff. They still believe that Sheela-Na-Gigs are part of this whole conspiracy to warn us against sin and lust. We call it the images of lust theory, because there was a book written which tried to support it, right? Which was called Images of Lust. But mostly it's about French churches. because it's about the Romanesque, the early period. And what they were doing, instead of looking like I do at the castles and the churches and trying to find out the history of these places and where the Sheela-Na-Gigs are, they're just sitting in libraries and making all this theological argument about celibate priests and stuff, you know. Well, Ireland didn't go for that. You know, that's the Roman churches. The old Gaelic Celtic church, forget it. You know? They thought it was a really bad idea. So, just to be clear, yeah, that's the dates. 13th, 14th centuries is when they really start burgeoning out, you know. I mean, now, the earliest Sheela-Na-Gigs is a really difficult subject because it's a bit of stone. And these churches have been rebuilt, you know, the ones on castles, some of them, there's a tradition that they came from the church and were put on that castle. So, I mean, it's a stone, early date stone. But the important thing is that most of them appear to date in the 13th, 14th century, 15th, 16th century. And that is a period of when Ireland is actually really rich. Ireland has subsumed the Normans. Now, other people call it the Norman invasion, but I think that's a bit like saying there's been an English invasion recently.
Yourself included.
Myself included, you know. Whereas, you know, there's a few people here who've got English roots, but we've also got Celtic roots. You know, my mum's from Cornwall, my dad's Scottish Welsh, you know what I mean? So, the thing about the Norman period, the Norman invasion, so called, is that there was a war, you know. But actually, come on, you went to school, some of you know. I mean, what was that war about? Who was fighting who? It was the Irish showing the way in, you know. It was a whole, you know, there was one Irish chief trying to get his place back in Ireland and brought them in, and all the rest of it, you know. And the thing is, there's really important points, and actually Kelly, the old curator of the National Museum, said within 50 years of the Norman invasion, 1175-6, within 50 years they're having a bardic council, and the person that is chosen as the chief bard of Ireland, the chief brehon of Ireland, is a Norman, a son of a Norman invader. The invader, so called. Now, the thing about it is, these Normans, when they came in, they were fairly pragmatic, and they'd already done it in France, which is that they realised that their way in wasn't to just keep slashing and burning. Control was all about marrying in. So they married in, and they became Irish. And that's why so obviously they knew where they were going. I'd love to see those invaders, because I reckon most of them could speak Irish when they landed there. You know, they come from Wales, they didn't come from England. You know, so it's all really interesting. But the thing is, whatever that combination was, it actually consolidated Ireland. And my view of the Middle Ages period has slowly evolved over recent years to now I'm seeing it as, wow, it was actually a really controlled, rich country. I don't know how many there are here, but in Galway there's over 120 castles still standing, you know. I mean, all around me there's castles. I drive to work, you know, 15 kilometres, and I pass some like 8 or 9 big castles still standing there. Now they're not defending anything. They're actually built as you know, they're kind of status symbols. They're also places where you put valuables. It's where you store your grain. Most of them are actually storage towers. That's why they're built in a tower form, with air running through them and everything. It's where they put the grain. Because they don't have banks. They don't have loads of things that we have. But what they do is they're indications of how bloody rich they were. You know, they were built for the chiefs, and the chiefs had money. They had power and money. And what happened was a whole society evolved during the later medieval, Middle Ages period a whole society evolved in Ireland that was a combination of this Norman power coming in. There was a combination of the old Irish getting together, seeing new ways of doing stuff. Building castles was part of it. There was farming, there was fishing, there was loads of stuff going on. And they were getting rich and really organised. And it's part of what they did was they set up an actual Brechon structure. You know, Brechon is the law structure of old Ireland. A lot of you will know about Brechon law. And Brechon law was the structure by which Irish people lived. Meanwhile, there was the English law, which was like we call Catholic law or Roman law, you know, which was in like the Pale, places like that. But over most of Ireland was run with this structure of the old Brechon law. And they actually found that they had to set up a system, a dual system, because the Brechon law was how the land was controlled. So it's under this law structure of the Brechon law structure that the land and all the important things were controlled. So they actually officially set up a dual law structure in Ireland. It's very interesting. And most of what I'm talking about now actually comes from an Irish lawyer who actually lived in America most of his life. And that was his big thing, studying the old Irish law structure. I mean, you imagine having two law structures running tandem, but they had to do it. And they actually set up bardic schools, bardic training places all through Ireland. And there's castles, there's one not very far from me, that was the castle for the bardic schools of East Galway and North Tipperary. So you've got a whole different ball game going on. Yeah, and yeah, you have to see the Sheela-Na-Gigs, you have to see them in their place, not just in their church, not just on the castle, but what was going on around that castle. What was that world about? You know, you can only understand anything really if you understand the society, the culture that actually built it. If you don't understand it, it doesn't mean anything. Anyway, what was that little bit of writing I did there was just saying that every Sheela-Na-Gig that's actually in the position of where it's kind of original situation is always worth much more than one sitting in a museum. And one of the earlier ones that I was taken to see is at Balavornik, down in Cork. And the interesting thing is going back to these Sheela-Na-Gigs that are saints. Now this Sheela-Na-Gig is regarded as a saint. It's still regarded as a saint. You know, if you go down there now, a lot of people, if you go down there on St. Godnic's Day, and that place is packed on St. Godnic's Day. Yeah, it's massively packed. This saint is so worshipped and taught, and people from the Aran Islands go there because there's all these shrines on the Aran Islands. It's a whole big ball game going about this woman. And what they are is the same with Innan Lee. They're not official saints. They're not on the official saint list. They're not over there in the church in the saint list. You know, they're what we call false saints. They're saints they couldn't get rid of because nobody would stop worshipping them. And believe me, there's huge crowds go there all the time. You know, let alone on a day.
When they go to pray for people who are ill, I come from that far from there.
Yeah.
They go and you step on the window, and she, as far as I know, she's still fully in use.
Oh yeah.
But
totally.
many people, if you go to the well then afterwards, where there's the tree with all the fruities on, and talk to them, and they say, "Oh, is that the little one over the window?" They don't really care. But they will go in and they rub her. But it's the only place where I see crowds and crowds of people still doing it.
Yeah.
And then over further, there's a black ball.
You've got a picture of it
there. In the wall.
The black ball is in there. That's the black ball.
What's it made of?
There's a whole ball game. What's it made of? It's incredible.
How big is that?
Well, what do you
Half
say?
that size one.
Well,
half that size.
Sorry?
She has what size is this?
Oh, what size?
It's about half of that size.
Yeah, big, good size.
Yeah.
It's hard to know because it's
So
in the
you
wall,
can't
you can
evolve.
only feel it, you know. But apparently it used to be.
It looks like iron.
It's not, it's stone, you know it's stone, isn't it? It's stone.
What's it represent?
But the thing is, it wasn't in the church. They trapped it in the church because there was huge arguments going on about all the relics that were associated with this saint, because they were being used for healing. And believe me, people, actually you could nearly go down there on any random day and still find people there for a really serious feeling of healing.
Absolutely.
Any day, yeah. And on a feast day, they still bring out lots of relics, bits and pieces.
Was
There's
it a
big
Black
eye,
Madonna in the church, you know?
and what there is a wooden figure.
Yeah, one day a year.
One day a year they bring it out the church and walk around and everybody. So you rub everything with a handkerchief, and then you have a ribbon and you measure the statuette that you carry around, and it becomes a Thomas goblet, and you tie it around that, and that's a healing thing. So it's a huge big thing.
Could you repeat the term you used for saints that they couldn't get rid of?
The what?
The saints that they couldn't get rid of.
Folk saints. They just say folk, you know, folk music. Folk saints. Yeah.
And also, did you mention something about there being, alongside the Sheela in these places, there were other things found that they couldn't explain what the use of was? Was that something you said previously?
No, I think you're getting confused.
No, I was just wondering,
Lots of other things here.
was the black wall and the goblet and all these...
Well, with Goblet's Church, you see, why I'm showing you this is that I showed you earlier killing a boy in a Gui. Now, there was a huge amount of very similar ritual going on, but it's all died out. You know, when there was a woman researcher in the 30s, well, a bunch of women actually got onto the Sheela-Na-Gig thing in the 30s. They're from Port Leach, and they decided to get out there and go looking for them and try and suss them out a bit. And that's when the subject actually becomes a bit more sensible, of course, you know. They take it out of the hands of men and they actually catalogue them and blah, blah, blah. But what they do that's really important is they go to places like Killing a Boy and St Goblet's Church, right? You know, Balawarne. And they go along to places where there's a Sheela-Na-Gig in a place where there's still ritual in attendance with it. And the thing about it is, why I'm showing you this is I can't show you the ritual at Killing a Boy. It's gone. Yeah. You go there on a feast day, there's nobody there. You go to County Cork, go there 11th of February, believe me, you won't be able to park the car anywhere near it. It's packed. And this church, although it's sort of nominally Protestant, that is because it doesn't belong to either lot. It's not in there. The whole place is run by the council. The church actually has got nothing to do with it. Yeah. See, it's old. It's old. It relates right back to the early church structure. And the thing about it is, both of these saints I'm talking about, Inugui and Goblet, they don't have a history of being saints in the same way as all the other saints. They're druids. They're the daughters of druids, and the whole story about how Goblet lands there is she starts off, she's the daughter of a druid. She's sent out, she's looking for these white deer. Big long story. It's got nothing to do with Christianity. And it's the same with Inugui.
And also the fact that the breasts, perhaps of Anu back the road from there.
There's tons of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anyway,
can I just make a little comment? It's really buzzing me. Not long ago, you said that the Sheelas really belong to Christianity. Oh, that's what I'm.
No, they're Christian era, is all I was saying. They're not.
I see.
And I was just saying they're not. There's a lot of people look at them And believe me, I'm a fond of comments on Sheela's because I have a market stall in Galway. I should be on it tomorrow, but it's Arts Week, so I'll be on it next week. And I get hundreds and hundreds of tourists come to my store, and I've got plaques, I've got Sheela-Na-Gig. Actually, I have my stall arranged so that they come and I've got all the Celtic art, my jewellery and stuff over there. And they come along and they look at it and then they turn and then I have all the Sheela-Na-Gigs there, you know. And I should really have a microphone on. But I love it, you know. It's yeah. That's what I do. I make a living. But I'm not just Sheela-Gigs, I've been making all kinds of jewellery and writing all kinds of books, you know, from New Grain on.
Sheilas from some.
Oh, original Sheelas, like real ones?
Yeah,
God,
so-
no. Like nicking off the church. No, I do images on them. There's some over there. I do plaques. You got them with plaques? No, you don't. You can't, they're too scary for up here. Scare the kids away.
Can I clarify something? So does that mean all the churches that have a shield on top, that they were not built for Christianity, they were built before allowed Christianity?
No, they're Christian. And what I'm saying is they're different forms of Christianity.
So Druid Christianity?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I was hoping a fellow would be here tonight. There's written a book called The Druid Code, which I was going to recommend as a good book to read about this era that I'm talking about, you know? Because he's trying to point out that the original. You see, Ireland wasn't, Christianity didn't come to Ireland because a bunch of missionaries landed like Paddy, you know, and said, oh, I'm going to have a fight with the Druids and all that. It was actually brought here. If you research any of the early saints, who they are, they're always sons and daughters of bards, brackons, chiefs, druids, you know.
So actually,
so all those early Christians,
agitated.
in the early, you know, like the first years of the first millennia, you know, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th century, they're druids. They're not like, you know, and the whole thing of Roman Christianity is much later. This comes in. That's a little battle that starts with Patrick. That's what Patrick's all about. Patrick is actually. The story of Patrick is the story of the Roman Church coming in on top of the old Gaelic Celtic Church that was there. And the old Gaelic Celtic Church has its roots way back deep into something that is incredible actually. I mean, like, I live on the border of Clare. And most of my research now, in fact my thinking right now is because I live in Clare, where a lot of memories retained amongst the old people there, and they're talking about Egyptian priests and Coptic church and the real roots of what Irish Christianity was in the beginning. I'm going to show you some examples. Anyway, backtrack to Balavorna. You see, Balavorna is this ancient ritual that's only semi-Christian. Although the Sheela-Na-Gig is a Christian era, they're not prehistoric, you know, not pre-Christian. They're not the Christianity you're probably familiar with. Anyway, when I first started researching Sheela-Na-Gigs, I used to work for the BBC, and I knew a teacher. Knew him quite well because he ran a pub. But you know, can't beat a teacher who runs a pub. They're the better sort, aren't they? Anyway, Paddy Kelly says to me, well, you've got to go to Balavorna. So one day he said, right, we've got to Balavorna. So we go to Balavorna, and he got me rubbing the ball, walking around the church, and all that. We go inside, and he says, now stand up there, this is a window's ledge, and you put your hand up under there, and you rub above the window ledge. And he grins and he takes me outside and he said, and that's what you've been rubbing. No? So the whole ritual, see, it's rubbing, it's, you know, the saying, the rub of the relic. You know?
What?
The rub of the relic. It's an Irish saying. The rub of the relic.
Next.
Anyway, she's a lovely little little figure. It's very odd.
Lovely, yeah.
Yeah, she's very small. She's one of the smallest figures, and yeah, hardly any legs, just little sort of stubby legs. And why is she? Look, that is an old window. It could be Romanesque window. It's meant to be that shape. Put her in at an angle. Boom. You know. You see, what you're looking at all the time with Sheela-Na-Gig is symbolism, and it's magical symbolism. You know, symbolism is how you enhance an image. You know, this is a Celtic thing as well. You know, so if you look at Celtic art, it's always using symbolism to enhance and strengthen an image, to image power. You know? So she's very small, but she's very powerful. Anyway, that's how Seamus Murphy, the great sculptor down in Cork, I've heard of Seamus Murphy, I'm not asking you, imaged St. Godman. He knew what she was. Look, there's a fence around there which is all white deer. Yeah, there's white deer over there. Bees, she's known as the queen of the bees. You know, it's all totally, she looks Christian, but yeah.
And there's hound as well.
Yeah. So back to Killing the Boy, right? So Killing the Boy's sitting there over this lovely doorway. This is a photograph from 1959, just to show, it's the clearest picture, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. And the thing about Killing the Boy is that there we got more of this sort of like, some really solid evidence really of this Coptic far out sort of origins of the early Christian world. And as I say, if you can understand Killing the Boy, you start to comprehend the whole thing that's going on with Sheela-Na-Gig. Because the western wall of that church has got that on it. Yeah. Now they like kind of dampen it down and say it's a cross of Lorraine. Well, what's the cross of Lorraine? You know, it's Coptic, you know. And friends of mine, I know some really cool people in Clare. I work occasionally with a woman called Mary O'Halloran, and she comes from a family of healers who were the healers of the chiefs, the O'Connors and stuff, and the clans of the area. A family live all around there, you know. And there's stories of Egyptian priests. It's amazing, you know. They've got a completely different view of Christianity to everybody else that I know. It's wonderful. I keep her going. Keep that memory going. I thrown that one in. Another one over in an old church called Sarkin, Kerry. I need to do more research in Kilsarkin, but that's a very early church though. This funny little cow-like figure. And it's hard to see her ears there. That's a big one. I mean, Jesus Christ, she's it's out there, isn't it? Yeah. And that's rubbed all over.
Yeah.
That window, she's rubbed, everything's rubbed. There's just rubbings everywhere.
They've just got such unique personalities, haven't they? Every one of them.
Every one of them.
It's like it's almost like, you know, when you talk about the goddess, for example, you know, the different aspects of the one.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what they're doing, I'm sure it's local deity all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this
They
one.
have a specific meaning.
This is over a window in Tottenham Church in Westmeath, you know. I mean, she's got 4 eyes, yeah. I mean, it's crazy, you know. But you find, strangely enough, as you get up over near the northern border, more fierce and scary they get, you know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that one's from Cavan, classic one.
That's a typical Cavan.
Yeah. Cavan girl, all right. And then you got like Dominic, you know, there's a castle in Limerick.
Supermodel.
So what I've just thrown you is examples of the symbolism that's going on. I mean, you know, what are they doing?
Yeah.
The ribs.
Yeah. The ribs, the breasts. I read other photographs.
That looks like a nice booth.
Big
Going
double set
on.
of breasts.
But it's fascinating. I mean, none of us. I'm not going to pretend I have any idea why they've got their hand up and doing all this. I mean, it's symbolism as well.
Are they dancing? Are they expressing some kind of ritual
What people have
dance?
suggested, Sheela-Na-Gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Sheela-Na-Gig, she's doing a gig.
This is Kilkenny, isn't it?
Kilkenny, yeah.